Sonible have just added a 6th plugin to their Pure bundle, and there's no doubt that these AI assisted plugins are quick and easy to use, but do they deliver results? I'm going to let you decide that and let me know in the comments down below. But first, I'd like to play you a before and after demo of a mix where I used all 6 plugins. Then I'll show you just how easy they were to use.
I know that it's impossible for a mortal soul like me to cross whatever separates, to cross what we can see. And I know it's wishful thinking, and I know it cannot be, and I know I'll never feel you laying close to me. But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries? And I would fall to my knees, and I would crawl what's in between you and me.
Yes, I know the second version was noticeably louder, and that's because I was using the pureLimit plugin. However, if you go back and look closely at the metering of the before and after versions, you'll notice, especially in the chorus, that they were both peaking at around about 0 dB. However, the second version was noticeably louder because of that limiter plugin. We'll delve into that one a little later, but first I want to take a look at the plugins I used on the vocals. So the first plugin I've used on my vocals here is pureEQ, and it's got something in common with all of the other plugins, and that's the learn feature. Basically what you do is start off by selecting a profile. In this case I'll select vocals high for these female vocals. You hit the learn button and then you play a few seconds of your track while it does its analysis.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross?
So it's come up with this starting point, but it's a bit more than just an EQ curve. It's a dynamic EQ curve for a start, so it's responding to the underlying audio, but it's also doing some spectral correction. It's looking for deficiencies, things like harsh frequencies that need to be suppressed or dull frequencies that need to be accentuated. Now, let's have a listen to the sort of before and after result using this bypass of our starting point.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries?
So I can certainly hear that it sounds a little bit more full. It also sounds a little bit more crisp as well. So that's going to help it to kind of cut through the mix a little bit more. But it is just a starting point. You can tweak it with just a few controls on this interface here. So for example, you could use the balance control. This is the big knob in the middle. And this is basically going to control how much of this EQ setting is applied. So nothing when it's set to 0, and you can set it all up to 150. Let's just dial that in a little bit.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross?
Okay, pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to take a look at the style control. Now our choices here are neutral, bright, and warm. Now I'd recommend with some of these settings that you do listen in context. So let's do that with the style control now. I'll turn on the rest of the mix and I'll flick through the 3 basic settings.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries?
So I'm pretty happy with the neutral setting there. Now the other control that you've got here is this dynamic control, and it kind of is what it says. It controls how dynamic this EQ curve is. So if we set it down to 0, for example, and play the track, you'll see it's not changing the curve very much at all.
But can I try?
Turn it up a little bit.
But can I try?
It's making subtle changes, and all the way up.
But can I try?
And you can see it's making some quite dramatic changes there. So I'll have a listen to that and find a setting I like.
But can I try? Can I dream?
Okay, again, I would tend to do this in the context of the track, but it's useful to listen to it in solo just for this demo. Now, finally, you can control which frequencies it's actually adapting. So you can do that with the range controls down here. So if I just wanted to leave the low frequencies alone, if I was happy with them in my recording, I could push that up, and the same for the high frequencies. So I could focus just in the middle frequencies if I think there are some problems there that need to be solved. So let's have a quick listen to a before and after of the result I'm going for here.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries?
Now, I just wanted to quickly mention that although these plugins are individually quite inexpensive, you still do get a big saving if you get the bundle. Just follow the link in the description down below. For pureComp, I've already run the learn feature and made some basic adjustments. Here's a before and after of what this compressor has done to the vocal.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries?
Now, as with all of these plugins, you can either just use the basic result it gives you, or you can do some little tweaks. So for example, you can actually manually control how much compression is applied. I ended up with this on 41 or so. There's a style setting here where we can switch between clean, mixed, and dirty. Let's have a listen to all of those.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries?
So I decided to go for clean there. And then we've got this clarity control. Now, according to the manual, this attempts to correct any tonal imbalances and basically can make it more tonally consistent. Now, I couldn't hear a massive difference with this, but I did settle on 30. Have a listen and see what you can hear.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries?
As I say, I settled on 30. That sounded about right for me for this track. Now, with this particular plugin, because we're adjusting the gain with compression, we can have it automatically make up for any gain changes that it's made, or we can manually do it. So I've set it manually here, but as I say, you can set it automatically. Now, I do think it's worth mentioning that in the settings of this particular plugin, if we open those up, we can also enable a soft limiter. I opted to have it switched off on this occasion, but it's worth knowing that that is there. Now, I've already run the learn feature on pureDeess for our vocal, and I've also dialed in some basic settings so we can have a quick listen to a before and after. Now, I will apologize, we'll be looping around the same sentence again and again as we listen to this, and I've chosen this sentence because it's got a couple of S sounds in there that I wanted to suppress. Let's have a listen using the bypass feature to switch it off and on.
To cross whatever separates, to cross whatever separates, to cross whatever separates, to cross whatever separates.
And you can hear there, it's just getting rid of some of the harshness. Now, you may think I haven't gone far enough, but I do caution not to go too far. For example, if I put this all the way up to 100, it can really make the vocal sound kind of weird.
To cross whatever separates, to cross whatever separates.
We're not trying to get rid of the S and the T sounds. We're just trying to control them so that they don't sound too harsh. Now, as well as some gain adjustment here, we can also adjust the kind of tone of the sibilants in this using both the color and the shaping controls here. So with color, we can select either soft, balanced, or sharp. So on sharp, for example, it still remains relatively crisp sounding. Have a listen.
To cross whatever separates, to cross whatever separates.
but I opted for soft in this case. Now with the shaping control, basically we're adjusting how much sort of spectral tonal shaping is happening towards that color setting that we've selected over here. So it's a way of just sort of dialing in that to a specific degree. Now finally, we do have a sibilance control here, so we can just isolate the sibilance that we're actually controlling. Have a listen to that. That can be handy just to make sure we're catching the actual frequencies that we want to catch. To give our vocals a little bit of life, I've already run the learn feature for pureVerb, of course, a reverb plugin, and I've set the profile to vocals. Now, of course, I want to blend the original with the reverb sound. So for that, I've used the mix control only on 10. I just wanted it to gently be there, but I'm going to temporarily just push it up to, I don't know, around about 50 or so you can a little bit more clearly hear how the other controls affect the sound. So the big size control in the middle probably speaks for itself. A small room would sound like this.
But can I try?
And a bigger space might sound like this.
But can I try?
So I had this set to around about 50 or so. We've also got this synthetic control over here. So basically this makes it less or more natural sounding. I want it to sound pretty natural, so I've got this set to 0, but it can be used more as an effect if you push it all the way up, and that could be useful for maybe, I don't know, an EDM vocal or something like that. So with that pushed up.
But can I try?
And then down.
Can I dream?
It's subtle, but it's definitely there. And then finally, we've got this mode control here where we can switch between normal, we've got infinite, we've got reverse, and we've also got bounce. Now, lots of these are not at all suitable for this vocal, but I'm going to demonstrate them anyway. But I would suggest that some of them would be useful for other instruments. So we'll start off with normal and cycle through them.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries? And I would fall to my knees, and I would crawl. What's in between you and me?
At times in our mixes, we appear to get some instruments that kind of cancel each other out because they occupy similar frequency ranges. This is called masking, and it's where a plugin like pureUnmask comes in really handy. We can use it to kind of move one instrument out of the way when the other one plays. In this case, I want the bass guitar to move out of the way whenever the kick drum plays. So what we do is insert the plugin on the instrument that we want to suppress. As I say, in this case, a bass guitar. Now, the other part of this kind of depends on your DAW as to exactly how you do it, but essentially you use the sidechain feature to send the signal from the other instrument, in this case the kick, to this plugin. So whenever the kick plays, the bass will be suppressed. Let's solo them together and see that in action. Now, it's a little bit more than just compression here because it's doing it on a frequency by frequency basis. And that's why we've got this resolution control down here, which we can set low, mid, and then high. So if we want it to be really detailed, we can set this to high. We've also got a speed control. I've set this pretty fast because I really want that bass to get out of the way very, very quickly as soon as the kick plays. And then, of course, we've got our overall unmasking control, so we can control how much suppression happens. Now, we can set the frequency range down here, but it is kind of set for us intelligently when we select different profiles up here. So I started off by selecting bass. As I say, it did set that frequency range, but I can manually adjust it if I want to myself. So here's a scenario. You've already pushed the volume of your track up to its limit. If you go any further, the peaks will go above 0 dB and you'll get clip clipping, and yet it still doesn't sound loud enough, especially compared to other tracks. This is where a limiter comes in. It prevents those peaks from going above 0 dB, but allows you to push the kind of average volume up, and that's how human beings actually perceive loudness. Now, pureLimit is super easy to use, of course. You simply run the Learn tool here, as I've already done, and then you select a profile, and I've selected pop. Now, we're going to listen to a before and after using the bypass button, but I want you to remember with both of these versions, the peak is actually at around about 0 dB, but one definitely sounds louder than the other. Let's have a listen.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries? And I would fall to my knees, and I would crawl. What's in between you and me?
Now, we do have a little bit of control over this still. We've got the style here, which we can set to soft, neutral, or hard, and basically it is what it says. The soft one is going to be more transparent. You're just not going to notice the limiting as much as you will with the hard setting, and this can really pretty much depend on the style of music as to which setting you use here. Now, the input gain control is in the middle here, and this can just help you to drive the signal a bit harder, so it's just louder going in, but it's still being limited. It's not going to go above 0 dB. And then you've got this inflate control, which does this, makes it louder in a different kind of way. It pushes up that average volume without actually changing the input level. Let's just play with the inflate control for a moment and have a listen to that.
But can I try? Can I dream? Can I cross those boundaries?
And essentially you adjust these controls to taste. If you go too far, it can sound unnatural, and that can very much depend on the style of music that you're mixing. There's no prizes in music production for doing things the hard way. The important thing is getting results. And like I said at the beginning, I'm going to invite you to let me know in the comments down below whether you can get results using these plugins. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes to dive into the details, then I'd suggest you take a look at Sonible's Smart Bundle. I'll leave a link for that in the description down below as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Mike. I hope you're well, and I'll see you in the next video.